Hello, my name is Jane Flum, and I'm the receptionist for ANN. I am replacing the regular anchor for an unusual interview with the founder of ANN, who's just returned from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, studying the purpose of war of the three battles at Gettysburg on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. Welcome, Mr. Steve Edison.
Thank you very much, Ms. Flom. I'm so glad to be working with you again. You were in volume 8 and 9, and really enjoyed how you attacked those pro-slavery visitors we had.
Yes, I think we exposed those pro-slaveries for what they are.
Right.
Okay, did you find what you were looking for in Gettysburg?
Yes, I was looking for why do men fight, and particularly what is the purpose of war.
All right, so tell us first about the town of Gettysburg.
Well, the town of Gettysburg is pretty much the way you see it in the 1850s. Big corn and wheat fields and fences, and the seminary, Lutheran Seminary and Seminary Ridge, and the Cemetery Ridge, the cemeteries, and then Gettysburg itself is laid out like the spokes of a wheel.
And what did you see at Military Park?
The military park is like a national park. It's maintained by the Department of the Interior, consists of museum, bookstore, cafeteria, and they have buses that leave every day from 8 in the morning till 6 p.m. at night. 3 different kinds of buses. You can go on a regular bus tour with a guide that takes you to stop at each battlefield. You can take a double-decker bus with a pre-recorded message you listen to on your earphones, or for the professional historian, you can get a guide that you pay privately to sit in your car and take you anywhere and answer any questions about any battlefield and who fought there, and all the roughly 760 monuments that you may see in the course of the trip, and 375 howitzers.
Okay. Well, what did you see on the battlefields?
Basically nothing. As this photograph will show, here's the Confederate line here, the tree line, and there's an open field, and there's a clump of trees here where it's Cemetery Ridge. That's where the Union forces were, and there's nothing there to see. But on July 3rd, there's 15,000 troops went across this open field without any cover against the Union soldiers, and this is insane. This is crazy by 21st century standards.
So what did that have to do with abolishing slavery?
Practically nothing, because when the soldiers against the soldier, Meade versus the General Lee and Hickok and Pettigrew and Trumbull and the privates in the field that got a bayonet, you're only interested in survival, kill the guy before he kills you. So they're not thinking about any philosophical aspect of what the war is at that point.
All right. So who did you talk to, and what were their answers on the purpose of war?
Well, I basically tried to talk to everyone I could. I talked to the brown shirt guy with the brown hats, tour guides, and I said, what is the purpose of war? And it probably catches them off guard. And they said, well, the purpose of war is to defeat the enemy on a big battlefield of war. Really defeat them, make them sorry, make them hurt them, and that's the purpose of war. I said, wow, that's interesting, okay. But I wasn't quite satisfied with that. And then I got a very logical, business-like answer. Well, the purpose of war is you measure your armaments and the guns and the howitzers and the men and the horses against what you might gain and what you might lose. And you come up with the net worth. Is it worth it to fight this particular battle? And I said, that's all right if it was a business, but I still was looking further. So finally, on the 3rd day that I was there, I was in town and I met a native and I said, what is the purpose of war? And she says, the purpose of war is to settle a conflict, finally.
I see.
And I said, gee, that's it. That's what the purpose of war is.
It's so simple and it applies to all wars. The fighting is ceased and the differences are settled and the war is over.
That would be correct theoretically, except for one thing. At the end of the Civil War, and the armies are defeated, there's a lot of Confederate soldiers and undefeated people there that are defeated, but they're still part of the Confederate States of America, entitled to states' rights, and this was a war of Yankee invasion. Of course, they forget that they started the war and that this Battle of Gettysburg was in Pennsylvania, which is in the north. But otherwise, they're still in the mind of the Confederate States.
Then what's the nature of man?
The nature of man. I guess you want to ask me what is the nature of man. Is it war? And I'd say this should be studied in a classroom or a study group, but personally I feel that it is in the nature of man that war is definitely there, except for those of religious persuasion who won't admit that their congregation is anything but a religious nature.
Okay. Finally, do you recommend visiting Gettysburg?
Absolutely. I think everybody should visit Gettysburg in their lifetime. I'd say take at least 4 days, maybe 5 or 6, to see all the battlefields, the museums, the cycloramas, the dioramas, the ghost haunting sites, and I would say, and call these numbers at the bottom of the screen here. This is a general information number, and then the bookstore, and they'll give you information on how to get to Gettysburg.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Now let's hear from President Lincoln.
Wait, before we hear from President Lincoln, I think the viewers should get a taste of what it's like on an afternoon of July 3rd, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The Confederate howitzers have just quieted, and now the troops are ready to go across the Emmitsburg Road towards the Union line. This is probably what you see. Charge! There's the colonel. He's been hit.
Wow, this is really realistic.
Yes, because it's a diorama.
I can see that. Okay, well, now let's hear from President Lincoln in his appropriate remarks on November 1863, dedicating the National Cemetery.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.